The Grand Archive of Nexus Prime stood like a crystal mountain at the heart of the galaxy's capital world. Inside its vast halls, thousands of scholars from dozens of species worked to preserve the knowledge of civilizations spanning 3 million years. But today, in the smallest lecture hall on the archive's lowest level, only 12 people had bothered to attend Velthar's presentation. The Kashari historian stood at the podium, his forearms gesturing at the holographic display floating above the stage. His gray skin had deepened with age and his triple-jointed fingers trembled slightly as he manipulated the images. He had spent 30 years of his life on this research, and these 12 bored faces were all he had to show for it. The pattern is undeniable, Velthar said, his voice carrying the clicking undertones of his species. In 17 separate databases across the Concordat, we find the same anomaly. A gap in the historical record, precisely 843 years ago. Data that should exist simply does not. A young Porvathi student in the front row stifled a yawn. Her crystalline features reflected the hologram's light as she checked her communication device under the desk. Velthar continued anyway. More significant are these encryption fragments. I have found them in ancient probe data, in archaeological ruins on 6 different worlds, and in corrupted files within our own archives. They all contain references to the same thing, a species that called themselves human, a world they named Earth. We have been over this, Velthar, came a voice from the back. Professor Quinn Mora, head of the history department, stood with his mantis-like arms crossed. The coordinates you claim are Earth's location lead to an empty system. 1 yellow star, 8 planets, none suitable for advanced life. We sent a survey team there 50 years ago at your insistence. They found nothing. They found a dead world, Velthar corrected. The 3rd planet showed signs of atmospheric modification. Ancient radiation signatures consistent with natural geological processes. Quinn Mora interrupted. You see patterns because you want to see them. This theory of yours, this myth of a lost civilization, it is nothing but academic fantasy. The Concordat has maintained records for over 3,000 years. If humans existed, we would know, the other attendees murmured in agreement. Velthar felt his secondary heart sink. He had known this would happen, but hope had driven him to try one more time. Then explain this, he said quietly, pulling up a new image. It showed a piece of metal, roughly hexagonal, covered in strange symbols. This was recovered from the derelict probe I mentioned in my report. The probe that was found drifting at the edge of charted space last year. The room went silent. Even Quinimora leaned forward slightly. The symbols match nothing in any known language database, Velthar continued. But when I applied statistical analysis, I found patterns consistent with a complex written language. And inside the probe's corrupted data core, I found one word repeated over and over. Voyager, along with coordinates. Coordinates to where? Asked the Porvathi student, suddenly interested. To a location 2,000 light-years beyond the void barrier. Gasps echoed through the hall. The void barrier was the edge of explored space, a region where stellar density dropped dramatically and navigation became nearly impossible. No Concordat vessel had ever traveled beyond it. There was simply no reason to go into that empty darkness. This is madness, Quinn Mora said, but his voice had lost its certainty. Even if your probe is real, even if these symbols mean something, you are suggesting that an entire civilization existed, advanced enough for space travel, and then simply vanished. Where did they go, Velthar? Why would they hide? I do not know, the old historian admitted, but I intend to find out. The presentation ended in awkward silence. As the handful of attendees filed out, most avoided meeting Velthar's eyes. Only one figure approached him as he gathered his materials. Commander Zyphira of the Kree species stood nearly 7 feet tall, her feathered body covered in ceremonial military armor. Her raptor-like eyes studied the hologram that still floated above the stage. I found your presentation compelling, she said, her beak clicking thoughtfully. I am no historian, but I am a military officer, and I recognize a cover-up when I see one. Velthar looked up at her in surprise. You believe me? I believe something strange is happening, Zyphira replied. I have access to certain classified reports. In the past 6 months, our deep space monitoring stations have detected anomalies at the void barrier. Energy readings that match nothing in our databases. My superiors dismissed them as sensor errors. She fixed him with an intense stare. But what if they were wrong? Before Velthar could respond, an alarm began to wail throughout the archive. Red lights flashed in the corridor outside. People began running and urgent voices crackled over communication channels. Zephyra's hand went to her earpiece. She listened for a moment and her feathers stood on end. "I have to go. The emergency's out of fleet command." "What is happening?" Velthar asked. The commander looked back at him from the doorway. "Station 7 Gamma at the Void Barrier just sent a priority alert. Something is coming through." Velthar felt his blood run cold. "Coming through from where?" "From beyond the barrier. From the void itself." Zephyra's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "They are detecting hundreds of ships, maybe thousands, in military formation, and they are not responding to any hails." She disappeared into the corridor at a run, leaving Velthar alone with his holograms and his racing thoughts. The old historian looked down at the metal fragment displayed on his podium, at the strange symbols that he had studied for so long. His fingers traced the largest marking, a symbol that looked like a circle with lines radiating from it. A sun, perhaps, or a star, or Earth. He grabbed his datapad and pulled up the files from the ancient probe. Buried in the corrupted data was an image he had seen 100 times before. It showed a small blue world suspended in black space, continents visible through swirling white clouds, beautiful and fragile and utterly impossible. But if ships were coming from beyond the void, from the exact coordinates that probe had carried, then perhaps the impossible was about to become very real. Velthar looked up at the ceiling as if he could see through it to the stars beyond. Somewhere out there at the edge of everything they knew something was happening, something that would prove he had been right all along. The humans were coming home. Around him, the archive descended into chaos as news of the fleet spread. Scholars ran to their stations, politicians were summoned, and military channels lit up with emergency traffic. The Concordat, which had known peace for 1,000 years, suddenly remembered what it felt like to face the unknown. In the heart of that chaos, an old historian smiled for the first time in years. His life's work had been vindicated. But as he gathered his research and prepared to join whatever response was being organized, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered a question. If humans had hidden themselves away for 800 years, erasing their existence from galactic memory, what had they been hiding from? And more importantly, if they were coming back now, what did that mean was following behind them? The answers would come soon enough. The void was opening, and Earth's fleet was emerging from the darkness between stars. The galaxy was about to remember a species it had forgotten, and nothing would ever be the same again. The bridge of the Concordat flagship Sovereign Wing hummed with nervous energy. Commander Zephyra stood at the tactical station, her taloned hands gripping the console as she studied the sensor readings. Around her, officers from 4 different species worked their stations with practiced efficiency, but she could feel the fear beneath their professionalism. On the main view screen, the unknown fleet hung in the darkness of space like a swarm of metal predators. 217 vessels, ranging from small escorts to massive battleships that dwarfed anything the Concordat had ever built. They had emerged from the spatial tear 6 hours ago, and had been sitting in perfect formation ever since, absolutely silent. "Still no response to our hails," reported Lieutenant Shentok from communications. The insectoid officer's mandibles clicked in frustration. "I have tried every standard frequency and several non-standard ones. They are receiving our signals. They are just choosing not to answer." Admiral Krishan, the fleet commander, paced behind Zephyra's station. The old Morvathi's scaled skin had taken on a darker blue, a sign of stress in his species. "This is unacceptable. We have 18 battle groups positioned around them, and they sit there like they own this space. If they wanted peace, they would talk. If they wanted war, they would attack. What are they waiting for?" Zephyra studied the alien vessels more closely. Their design was unlike anything she had ever seen. Angular and utilitarian, with none of the elegant curves that characterized Concordat shipbuilding. They bristled with weapon emplacements and armor plating. These were ships built for one purpose, war, but something else caught her attention. "Admiral, look at their hull markings. Can we enhance image sector 37? The screen zoomed in on the side of one of the massive battleships. There, painted in white against the dark gray hull, was a symbol. A circle containing a map of continents and oceans surrounded by text in unknown characters. "Get Velthar up here," Zephyra said suddenly. "Now." 10 minutes later, the Kashari historian stumbled onto the bridge, his robes disheveled and his breathing heavy from running through the ship's corridors. But when he saw the symbol on the screen, he froze. "That is it," he whispered. "The symbol from the probe. This is them. These are humans." Before anyone could respond, every console on the bridge lit up simultaneously. The communication station erupted with sound as dozens of channels opened at once. "They are hailing us," Shentok said, his voice rising with surprise. "All frequencies. They are broadcasting on every possible channel simultaneously." On screen, Admiral Krishan ordered. The view screen flickered, and a face appeared. Zephyra had seen many species in her career, but this one made her breath catch. The human woman who looked back at them seemed almost familiar, like she could have been Kree or Porvathi but was neither. Smooth skin, bilateral symmetry, binocular vision. Simple and elegant and somehow unsettling in that simplicity. Concordate vessels. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Expeditionary Force. The human's voice was clear and strong, translated by their systems into perfect concordate standard. "I apologize for the delay in responding to your hails. We needed to verify your intentions and confirm certain historical data before making contact." Admiral Krishan stepped forward. "I am Admiral Krishan of the Concordate Defense Fleet. You have entered Concordate space without authorization, with a military force that can only be considered an invasion fleet. Explain your presence immediately." Admiral Chen's expression did not change. "We are not invading, Admiral. We are coming home. This galaxy belongs to Earth as much as it belongs to the Concordate. More, actually, since we were here first." The bridge went silent. Velthar moved closer to the screen, his forearms trembling. "You are really human? From Earth? But the records, the missing data, how? Are you the historian?" Chen asked, focusing on him. "The one who has been searching for us?" "Velthar, correct?" "Yes," the old Kashari breathed. "Yes, I am him. I have spent my life looking for proof that you existed." For the first time, Admiral Chen smiled. It was a sad expression. "Then you deserve to know the truth. 843 years ago, Earth was one of the most advanced civilizations in this galaxy. We had explored thousands of systems, made contact with dozens of species. We were preparing to help found what would become your Concordate." She paused and her smile faded. "Then the Devourers came." The word sent a chill through the bridge. Zephyra had never heard it before, but something in the way Chen said it made her skin prickle beneath her feathers. "What are Devourers?" Admiral Krishan demanded. "A nightmare," Chen replied. "A species that had evolved beyond biological form into something worse. They consumed entire civilizations, breaking them down into raw matter and energy to fuel their expansion. They had already destroyed 17 spacefaring races before they reached human space." Velthar's secondary hearts were racing. The empty systems in the outer reaches. The dead worlds with no explanation for their extinction. "That was them?" "Yes, and they nearly got us too." Chen's face hardened. "The war lasted 70 years. We threw everything we had at them. Every weapon, every ship, every soldier. We won, but barely. Earth itself was nearly destroyed. Our colonies were ash. Our population was reduced to less than 1 billion. She looked directly at Admiral Krishan. "So we made a choice. We erased ourselves from galactic memory. We hid behind an artificial spatial barrier that made our space impossible to navigate. We took every record, every piece of evidence that humans had ever existed, and we encrypted it or destroyed it. We wanted the Devourers to think we were extinct just in case any of them had survived." "And you stayed hidden for 8 centuries? Zephyra asked. "Why come back now?" Admiral Chen's expression became grim. "Because the barrier is failing. Our technology can only hold it for another few years. And because 3 months ago, our deep space scouts detected something at the edge of the galaxy. Energy signatures we hoped we would never see again." "The Devourers," Velthar whispered. "They are coming back. Maybe they were always out there in the dark between galaxies, waiting and growing. We do not know. But they are heading toward Concordate space, and they will arrive within the year." Chen leaned forward. "You need us. You need our weapons, our experience, our knowledge. And we need you. We need your numbers, your resources, your worlds. Alone, neither of us can stand against them. Together, we might have a chance." Admiral Krishan's scales had gone pale. "You expect us to believe this? To trust you? You appear with a war fleet and tell us horror stories about monsters from the dark. For all we know, you are the threat." "Then let us prove it," Chen said. "Send a delegation to Earth. See what we have built. See our records of the war. Make your own judgment. Before Krishan could respond, proximity alarms blared across the bridge. Tactical displays lit up with red markers. Multiple vessels breaking formation. The tactical officer shouted, "It is not the humans. It is our own ships. Faction identifiers show they are Supremacy fleet vessels." Zyphira's blood went cold. The Supremacy was a radical faction within the Concordat that believed in species purity and military strength above all else. They had been quiet for years, but now, they are locking weapons on the human fleet, Tactical reported. "Firing!" On the screen, a dozen Concordat vessels opened fire on the human formation. Plasma bolts and missiles streaked across space toward the closest human ships. What happened next took less than 3 seconds. The human fleet moved, not with the careful, calculated maneuvers of Concordat doctrine, but with a speed and precision that seemed impossible. Point defense systems lit up like a wall of light, intercepting every missile while the ships themselves rolled and shifted, letting plasma bolts pass harmlessly through their formation. Then the humans returned fire. Not at the ships, Zyphira realized immediately, but at their weapons. Precise surgical strikes that disabled every gun, every launcher, every offensive system on the attacking vessels without destroying a single ship or killing a single crew member. It was over before Admiral Krishan could even order a ceasefire. 12 Concordat vessels hung dead in space, powerless but intact, their crews completely unharmed. Admiral Chen's face reappeared on the screen. She did not look angry. She looked tired. "Admiral Krishan, I hope that demonstration makes our intentions clear. We do not want war with the Concordat, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. And as you just saw, we have had 800 years to perfect the art of war." She stood from her command chair. "I am sending coordinates for a wormhole gate that will take your delegation to Earth. Come see what we are trying to protect. Come see what we are asking you to help us defend, and then decide if you would rather face the Devourers alone." The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, Zyphira found herself looking at Velthar. The old historian was crying, tears streaming down his gray face. "They are real," he whispered. "After all this time, they are real." Admiral Krishan slumped into his command chair. "Get me the High Council now and prepare a delegation." He looked at Zyphira. "Commander, you will lead it. Take the historian. Take whoever you need. Go to Earth. Find out if we are about to face salvation or damnation." Zyphira straightened, saluting crisply. But inside her mind was racing. Humans were real. Earth was real. And something called the Devourers was coming. The galaxy. The wormhole transit took only minutes, but to Zyphira it felt like hours. She stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic shuttle, watching reality twist and bend around them as they traveled through impossible distances in the blink of an eye. Beside her, Velthar pressed all 4 hands against the transparent aluminum viewport, his eyes wide with wonder. "Functional wormhole technology," the historian breathed. "We have the math for this, but we never solved the power requirements. The energy needed to stabilize a gate this size should require the output of an entire star." "Maybe it does," said Council Representative Thane from behind them. The massive Urgoth folded his arms across his chest, his rocky features set in a permanent scowl. "Maybe these humans have learned to drain stars. Would you still think them saviors then, historian?" Velthar did not answer. He was too busy staring at what lay ahead. The wormhole iris opened and they emerged into the Sol system. And there, hanging in the darkness like a blue jewel, was Earth. Zyphira felt her breath catch. She had seen thousands of worlds in her military career, but something about this one was different. Maybe it was the unique ratio of ocean to land. Maybe it was the swirling white clouds that seemed to dance across its surface. Or maybe it was simply knowing that this world had been hidden for so long, a secret kept from the entire galaxy. "By the ancestors," Velthar whispered. "It is beautiful." "It is a fortress," Thane corrected grimly, pointing at the tactical display. He was right. As their shuttle approached Earth, the defensive network became visible. Thousands of satellites orbited the planet in precise patterns. The moon itself bristled with weapons platforms and shield generators. Massive stations hung at the Lagrange points, their surfaces covered in sensor arrays and railgun emplacements. "This is not a homeworld," Thane said. "This is a military installation that happens to have a planet at its center." Their shuttle was met by an escort of sleek human fighters that guided them toward a massive orbital station. As they docked, Zafira noticed something strange about the humans they could see through the viewports. They moved with a casual confidence that spoke of people who felt completely safe, despite living in the heart of a war machine. Admiral Chen met them personally at the airlock. She wore a formal uniform now, dark blue with silver insignia, and she was not alone. Behind her stood a dozen other humans, each wearing different colored uniforms or civilian clothes. Zafira realized with a start that she was looking at representatives of Earth's entire government and military structure. "Welcome to Earth Station Alpha," Chen said, offering the concordate salute which Zafira returned. "On behalf of humanity, I welcome you to our home. I know you have questions. I promise you will have answers." They were taken to a conference room that overlooked Earth itself. The planet slowly rotated beneath them, and Zafira found herself unable to look away from it. The cities visible on the night side glowed with light, constellations of human habitation spreading across the continents. 800 years ago, this world was dying. Admiral Chen began without preamble. She gestured, and holographic displays filled the air around them. "The Devourer War devastated us. Our population fell from 15 billion to less than 1. Our cities were ruins. Our atmosphere was poisoned. By every metric that matters, we were extinct." The holograms showed scenes of destruction that made even Thane flinch. Cities reduced to slag, oceans boiling, the sky itself seeming to burn. "But humans are stubborn," Chen continued with a slight smile. "We rebuilt. It took 2 centuries just to make Earth habitable again, another century to restore our population to sustainable levels, and all that time we stayed hidden because we knew one truth above all others." She pulled up a new image. A starfield, unremarkable except for strange dark shapes moving through it. As Zafira watched, one of the shapes passed in front of a star, and she saw it clearly for just a moment. A thing of nightmare geometry, all angles and surfaces that seemed to exist in more dimensions than should be possible. "The Devourers do not die easily," Chen said quietly. "We thought we had destroyed them. We hunted down every ship, every station, every fragment of their civilization we could find. We burned their worlds and scattered their fleets across the cosmos, but we could never be certain we had gotten them all. So we hid. We erased ourselves from history. We built our barrier and waited." "For what?" Zafira asked. "What were you waiting for?" "For them to forget us. Or for them to come back. Whichever happened first." Chen looked at each of them in turn. "We have spent 8 centuries preparing for this moment. Every human is trained in basic combat. Every city has shelters and defensive positions. Every ship in our fleet was built with one purpose: to survive the next encounter with the Devourers." Velthar leaned forward, his analytical mind working. "You said you monitored the galaxy during your isolation. You watched the concordate form and grow. Why did you not contact us before? Why wait until now?" "Because we needed to be certain," answered a new voice. An elderly human woman stepped forward from the back of the room. Her gray hair was tied back, and she wore the simple clothes of a civilian, but something about her presence commanded attention. "I am Dr. Elizabeth Okonkwo, head of Earth's Long-Term Strategic Planning Division. For 800 years, my predecessors and I have been watching and waiting, calculating the optimal moment for reintegration." She pulled up a complex mathematical model. The concordate needed to be strong enough to be useful in the coming war, but not so strong that they would see us as a threat to be eliminated. The Devourers needed to be far enough away that we had time to build trust, but close enough that the threat was real, and we needed to be certain that our barrier was failing, because revealing ourselves before that point would have wasted centuries of sacrifice. "You gambled with the entire galaxy," Thane said angrily. "You hid while civilizations rose and fell. While we struggled to build peace, you could have helped us. You could have shared your technology decades ago." "And if we had?" Dr. Okonkwo challenged. "What would you have done with weapons that could destroy stars? With AI systems that could hack any computer? With genetic modifications that could rebuild entire species? The concordate is young, Representative Thane. Young and idealistic and beautiful in that idealism. But we remember what happens when species get too much power too quickly. We remember because we nearly destroyed ourselves that way." She gestured to the planet below. "Every human alive has been raised with the memories of the fall. We teach our children about the wars that nearly ended us, long before the Devourers came. We remember the nuclear fires, the biological weapons, the runaway AI that killed billions. We clawed our way back from the brink of extinction twice. Once by our own hand and once by the Devourers. We will not give others the tools to do the same." The room fell silent. Then Admiral Chen spoke again. "But now the choice is no longer ours to make. The Devourers are coming whether we like it or not. And you need to understand what that means." She pulled up a star chart. Red markers indicated a path cutting through the outer reaches of concordate space. 3 months ago, our scouts detected their vanguard. 27 colony worlds in their direct path. If they maintain their current speed, they will reach the first inhabited system in 6 months. "How many ships?" Zafira asked, her military mind already calculating defensive positions. "Not ships," Chen said quietly. "Devourers do not build ships the way we do. They grow them. Massive biomechanical constructs that can operate independently or link together into larger structures. Our scouts counted over 5,000 separate entities in the vanguard alone. And behind them, somewhere in the dark between galaxies, is their main fleet. We estimate at least 50,000 more." Thane's rocky face had gone pale gray. 50,000. The entire concordate defense fleet has less than 10,000 ships. "Now you understand why we need each other," Dr. Okonkwo said. "Alone, we are both doomed. Together, we might survive. But only if you trust us. Only if you let us help prepare you for what is coming." Velthar had been silent, studying the data with his historian's eye for patterns. Now he spoke up, his voice thoughtful. "You have a plan. I can see it in how you structured this meeting. You did not bring us here just to show us Earth. You brought us here to make us an offer." Admiral Chen smiled. The historian sees clearly. "Yes, we have a plan. We call it the Sanctuary Protocol. We share our military technology, our tactical knowledge, everything we learned fighting the Devourers the first time. We help you transform the concordate defense fleet into something that can actually stand against them." "In exchange for what?" Thane demanded. "In exchange for alliance. For trust. For the promise that when this is over, if we survive, Earth will be welcomed back into galactic civilization as equals, not as conquerors or refugees." Chen looked at each of them. "We do not want to rule. We do not want your worlds or your resources. We just want our place in the galaxy restored. We want to stop hiding." Before anyone could respond, alarms began to wail throughout the station. A young human officer burst into the conference room, his face pale. "Admiral, we are getting—" The war room on Nexus Prime had never been so crowded. Representatives from all 7 major concordate species stood shoulder to shoulder with human military advisors, studying holographic displays that showed a galaxy under siege. 3 colony worlds had fallen in as many weeks. The death toll was already in the millions. Commander Zafira stood at the central tactical table, her feathers ruffled from stress and lack of sleep. Around her, the combined command staff argued in a dozen different languages, their translators struggling to keep up with the heated discussions. "We cannot simply abandon the outer reaches," insisted General Vokmar, his Urgoth voice like grinding stone. "Those are our people out there, our worlds. And they will die if we try to defend everywhere at once," countered Captain James Wu, one of Admiral Chen's senior tactical officers. The humans' patience was wearing thin after 2 hours of debate. "The Devourers want to spread thin. They want us to waste our forces defending targets we cannot hold. We need to establish a defensive line and evacuate everyone behind it." "Evacuate 40 colonies?" Vokmar's rocky fist slammed down on the table. "Do you have any idea how many ships that would require? How much time?" 3 weeks if we start now," Wu replied calmly. 3 months if we wait. 3 years if we are all dead because we tried to fight on their terms instead of ours." Zafira raised her hand, cutting through the argument. "Enough, Captain Wu is correct. We establish the defensive line at the Kessler Junction. Everything beyond that point gets evacuated. General Vokmar, coordinate with the transport guilds. I want every civilian ship we can spare running evacuation routes within the hour." She turned to a holographic display showing fleet positions. "And we need to address the other problem. The attacks." A heavy silence fell over the room. In the past week, there had been 7 incidents. Human supply convoys sabotaged, mixed species training exercises disrupted by violence. Yesterday, someone had tried to bomb a human advisor's quarters on a concordate station. "The Supremacy faction is behind it," said Commander Cithrak, head of Concordate Intelligence. Her insectoid features twisted with anger. "We have confirmed at least 17 cells operating across our territory. They see humans as invaders and the Alliance as a betrayal. Then we root them out, Zafira said firmly. We do not have time for this foolishness. Every hour we waste fighting each other is an hour the Devourers use to grow stronger. A human intelligence officer stepped forward. Commander, we may be able to help with that. We have certain technologies, surveillance systems that could— No, Zafira cut him off. She saw the human's surprise and softened her tone. I appreciate the offer, Lieutenant, but this is a concordant problem. We must solve it ourselves or we prove the supremacy right. We prove that we need humans to save us from our own people. The human nodded slowly, understanding. Understood, Commander. Across the room, Velthar worked at a separate console with a team of human historians and scientists. The old Kashari had barely slept since Harper's Reach fell, spending every waking hour analyzing Devourer attack patterns and searching ancient records for anything that might help. I have something, he called out suddenly. Every head in the room turned toward him. He pulled up a three-dimensional model of a Devourer vessel. Look at this structure. The way it moves, the way it processes matter. I have been comparing it to ancient data from Earth's war. The Devourers we are facing now are different, larger, more efficient. They have evolved. Admiral Chen, who had been observing from the back of the room, stepped forward. Her face was grim. We noticed that too. The ones we fought 800 years ago needed to consume entire populations to power their larger forms. These ones seem to do it faster, better. Because they learned, Velthar said excitedly. Do you not see? The Devourers are not just biological machines. They adapt. They evolve. They took what they learned from fighting you and became stronger. Which means they have a memory, Admiral Chen finished, her eyes widening. They remember Earth. They remember what we did to them. And they have been preparing for a rematch just like we have, Captain Wu added. Which means our old tactics might not work anymore. The room erupted in worried murmurs. Zafira felt a chill run down her spine. If the Devourers had spent 8 centuries evolving specifically to counter human weapons and tactics, then the advantage they were counting on might not exist. Then we adapt faster, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. We have something they do not. We have 7 species working together, each with different strengths. We use that. We create tactics they have never seen before. Over the next 72 hours, Zafira barely left the command center. She worked side by side with human advisors, learning their aggressive hit-and-run tactics while teaching them concordant defensive formations. They argued, compromised, and slowly began to forge something new. Not human doctrine, not concordant doctrine, something that belonged to both. The first real test came at the colony world of New Meridian. The Devourers arrived with a force of 300 bioships expecting to find a helpless target. Instead, they found the combined fleet waiting for them. Zafira commanded from the bridge of the Sovereign Wing, now refitted with human shield generators and weapon systems. Around her, the mixed fleet held position in a formation that would have been impossible 3 weeks ago. Human cruisers providing covering fire for concordant carriers. Kree fighters flying escort for human bombers. 7 species working as one. They are breaking into attack formation, reported Tactical. Energy signatures are spiking. They are preparing to fire. Let them come closer, Zafira said, her talons gripping her command chair. Wait for it, wait. The Devourers surged forward, their bioships writhing through space like living things. At 500 kilometers, they opened fire. Beams of energy that could tear through standard concordant shields lanced out toward the fleet. Now, Zafira ordered. Execute maneuver Chimera. The fleet exploded into motion. Human vessels, with their superior speed, darted forward to draw fire while concordant ships activated their newly installed phase shift generators, briefly existing in a different dimensional state that made them immune to energy weapons. Then before the Devourers could adapt, Kree fighters swarmed through the gaps in their formation, targeting the weak points that Velthar's research had identified. It was chaos. It was beautiful. And it was working. Multiple Devourer vessels breaking apart, Tactical reported. Their formation is collapsing. But Zafira had learned from human tactical doctrine. Never celebrate too early. Press the advantage. All ships firing pattern Delta. Target their command vessels. The battle raged for 3 hours. When it was over, 273 Devourer ships had been destroyed or driven off. The fleet had taken damage, lost ships, lost people, but New Meridian was saved. In the aftermath, as damage reports came in, Zafira found herself standing in the observation deck next to Captain Wu. The human was bandaging a cut on his arm, sustained when a console exploded during the battle. "We did it," Wu said quietly. "We actually did it. We won a battle," Zafira corrected. "The war is far from over." "Yeah, but we proved it is possible. We proved that working together, we can hurt them." He looked at her with something like respect. "You are a good commander, Zafira. Better than I expected, honestly." "Because I am not human?" she asked with a slight smile. "Because you listen," Wu replied. "You take advice from people who know things you do not, but you do not let them make your decisions for you. That is rare." Their moment of peace was interrupted by an urgent communication. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the display and she looked shaken. "We have a problem. The Supremacy faction just made their move. They have taken over 3 military stations in the core sectors, and they are demanding that all human forces leave Concordate space immediately, or they start destroying civilian targets." Zafira felt her blood run cold. "How many people do they have hostage?" "Preliminary reports say over 200,000. Mostly families of military personnel." Chen's voice was tight with controlled fury. "They are threatening to start executing them in 12 hours if we do not withdraw." "This is exactly what the Devourers want," Velthar said, appearing behind Zafira. "Divide us. Make us fight each other. We cannot let them succeed." "I know," Zafira said. She was already moving, calling up tactical maps of the taken stations. "But we also cannot let 200,000 people die. We need a plan." "We need—" "Commander," interrupted a Concordate intelligence officer. "We are receiving a transmission from one of the captured stations. It is coded for you personally. Eyes only." Zafira moved to a private console and accessed the message. The face that appeared made her heart skip a beat. It was Kriva, her youngest sister. "Zafira," Kriva whispered, glancing over her shoulder nervously. "I do not have much time. I am on Station Delta 7. The Supremacy has us locked down, but they did not check everyone carefully. Some of us still have access to secondary systems." Her eyes were bright with fear but also determination. "I can get you into the station's defensive grid. Temporarily disable their weapons. But you have to move fast and you have to coordinate with the other stations at the same time." The message ended with a data packet. Zafira stared at it for a long moment, then looked up at the others. "I have a way in. But it is Dan. The Sanctuary Nebula was beautiful in a deadly way. Vast clouds of stellar gas glowed in shades of purple and blue, illuminated by the young stars being born within. It was also the perfect battlefield. The dense gas would interfere with sensors and communications, creating chaos that could favor the smaller, more coordinated force. That was the theory, at least. As Zafira looked at the tactical display showing the Devourer main fleet approaching, theory felt very distant from reality. "Confirmed count is 53,000 individual entities," reported the tactical officer, his voice struggling to stay steady. "They are maintaining formation at the edge of the nebula, waiting for something. They are waiting for us to run," Admiral Chen said from her command station on the flagship United Earth. Her image was broadcast to every ship in the combined fleet. "They think we will see their numbers and break. They have seen it before, from every species they have ever faced." "Then let us disappoint them," replied Admiral Krishan from the Sovereign Wing. The old Morvathi's scales had taken on a determined blue. "All ships report ready status. Whatever comes next, we face it together." Zafira stood at her command station on a new vessel, the hybrid cruiser Harmony. It had been built in record time by human and Concordate engineers working around the clock, incorporating the best technology from both civilizations. Around her, a crew of mixed species worked in perfect synchronization, the result of weeks of intensive training. "Commander," called Velthar from the science station, "I am picking up something strange. There is a vessel at the center of the Devourer formation, much larger than the others. It is broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Can you decode it?" Zafira asked. "I already have," the old historian said quietly. "It is speaking in ancient Terran, the human language from before the fall. It is calling for Admiral Chen specifically." A chill ran through the bridge. Chen's face appeared on every screen and she looked pale. "Patch it through. All command personnel, private channel." The voice that came through was not mechanical or organic. It was something between something wrong. It spoke in a language that Zafira's translator rendered into Concordate standard. but she could hear the original words underneath like an echo. Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth. We remember you. We remember your species. 800 of your years we have searched for you. 800 years we have grown stronger, while you hid in your barrier like prey in its burrow. Now you emerge. Now you bring new meat for us to consume. How thoughtful. Chen's expression hardened. I am Admiral Chen. Identify yourself. We are what you made us, the voice replied, and now there was something like satisfaction in it. Did you think you killed us all? Did you think your genocide was complete? You destroyed 97% of our collective, but 3% survived. 3% fled into the dark between galaxies to heal, to grow, to evolve. The tactical display shifted, showing a massive bioship at the heart of the Devourer fleet. It was easily 10 times larger than the biggest human battleship, a nightmare of organic and mechanical components fused together. We learned from you, humans. We learned about fear, about rage, about the sweetness of revenge, and we have spent 8 centuries becoming something that can finally make you extinct. It has developed emotion, Velthar whispered. The Devourers evolved beyond their original programming. They became something new. Something worse, Captain Wu added grimly. Admiral Chen stood from her command chair. If you have spent 800 years thinking about revenge, then you have wasted your evolution. Because we have spent that time learning something better. We learned that we cannot win alone. That strength comes from unity, not isolation. She gestured, and the display showed the combined fleet. Thousands of ships from 7 species, arranged in a formation that was part human aggression, part concordant defense, and entirely something new. You want to make us extinct? Come try. But know that this time you do not face Earth alone. You face all of us, the Devourer voice laughed. It was a horrible sound. Then we will consume all of you together. How efficient. The channel cut off. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the Devourer fleet surged forward like a living tidal wave. All ships engage, Admiral Chen ordered. Execute Operation Prometheus. The battle that followed would be remembered for 1,000 years. The combined fleet met the Devourer charge with a coordinated defense that had never been seen before in galactic history. Human railguns fired in sequence with concordant plasma cannons. Kree fighters wove through Devourer formations, targeting weak points while Urgoth heavy cruisers provided mobile cover. But the Devourers had evolved. They adapted to tactics within minutes, shifting their bioships into new configurations that countered every strategy. For every Devourer destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. They are pushing us back, Tactical reported. We have lost the first defensive line. Casualties at 15% and rising. Fall back to the secondary positions, Zephyra ordered. All wings, execute pattern Omega-7. The fleet retreated deeper into the nebula, drawing the Devourers into the densest regions where sensors barely functioned. It was a dangerous gamble. In this chaos, friendly fire was as much a threat as the enemy. A massive explosion rocked the harmony. Hull breach on Deck 7, called Damage Control. Emergency bulkheads holding, but we have lost primary shields. Engineering, get those shields back online, Zephyra barked. Around her, the bridge crew worked with desperate efficiency. A human engineer and a Kashari technician worked side by side to reroute power, their different approaches complementing each other perfectly. On the main view screen, Zephyra watched as a concordant cruiser exploded under concentrated Devourer fire. Hundreds of lives snuffed out in an instant. But even as it died, its fighter squadron continued fighting, protecting a damaged human carrier as it limped toward safety. This is not working, Admiral Krishan said over the command channel. His voice was heavy with grief. We cannot hold them. There are too many. Then we use Prometheus, Admiral Chen replied, but her voice trembled slightly. Captain Wu, begin the firing sequence. Zephyra pulled up the tactical data on Prometheus. It was a weapon of desperate times, a network of satellites hidden throughout the nebula that could ignite the stellar gases in a chain reaction. The resulting explosion would destroy everything within light years, including most of the combined fleet. Admiral, the evacuation is not complete, Captain Wu reported. We still have 17 ships with battle damage. They cannot reach minimum safe distance in time. I know, Chen said quietly, but if we do not fire, all 50,000 ships die. This way we save most of them. It is the logical choice. Logical, Zephyra repeated, but not human, and not concordant. There must be another way. Velthar's voice cut through the command channel, urgent and excited. There is. I have been analyzing the Devourer communications. The way they coordinate their fleet. They are still using a hive structure, but evolved. More complex. More like a society. What good does that do us? Demanded Admiral Krishan. Because societies can be reasoned with. Velthar replied. The lead Devourer, the one that spoke to us. It said we learned about fear and rage, but it also said we, not I. They still think collectively, but now they have individual nodes that can think independently. What if we could communicate with those nodes? What if we could show them that this war is not necessary? They are trying to kill us, Wu said flatly. I do not think they want to talk. But why are they trying to kill us? Velthar pressed. Listen to what the leader said. We destroyed 97% of their collective. We committed genocide against them. From their perspective, they are not attacking. They are defending themselves against a species that nearly made them extinct. A long silence filled the command channel. Then Admiral Chen spoke, her voice thoughtful. You think they are traumatized? That they are driven by fear, not hunger? Yes, Velthar said. Everything about their evolution makes sense if you see them not as mindless predators, but as survivors suffering from collective trauma. They consume other species because they fear extinction. They attack humans because we proved we could destroy them. It is all fear, then how do we stop them? Zafira asked. We offer them what they truly need. Sanctuary, safety, a place in the galaxy where they do not have to fear extinction anymore. Velthar was speaking faster now, his excitement building. We combine the human first contact protocols with concordant diplomatic algorithms. We broadcast on every frequency, using mathematical proofs and universal concepts to show them we mean peace, not surrender peace. It will never work, Wu said. But he sounded uncertain. It might not, Velthar admitted. But it is better than killing ourselves with Prometheus. Admiral Chen looked at the tactical display, at the ships dying, at the weapon that could end it all. Then she looked at the faces on the command channel. Human, concordate, 7 species that had learned to trust each other in just a few short weeks. Do it, she said. Velthar, you have command of all communication systems. Broadcast your message. Captain Wu, delay Prometheus firing sequence. But keep it armed. If this does not work, we...